Chaplain Minor after this presentation to wrap everything up and still get out in 43 minutes. So, eventually I will look at the questions in Moodle, but I'm going to really look at Jessica and Megan, the Captain's Parsons, to monitor for questions. So with that, education and training in the Chaplain Corps. Let's begin with the idea of the Chaplain Corps purpose. Everything we do in training deals with our purpose, and this is directly out of the regs. We provide resources and personnel to enable free exercise of religion. We promote core values, respond to emergencies, provide spiritual care, provide character development, and a ministry of presence. This is true in many respects for both the Chaplain Support Specialist, CDI, and the chaplain, with the exception of the provide spiritual care, which later in the regulation, we show that that is not a CSS duty. But everything else is part of what we're up to as Chaplain Corps. So that being said, everything we do in our training must serve this purpose. We are specifically tasked, and we are the only job in Civil Air Patrol tasked with the care of mind, body, relationships, spirit, and family. Everybody else, even when dealing with personnel, education and training, health services, are dealing with people as active members. We are dealing with people as people. Entirely different mindset. And this may look familiar. It's the 5 pillars. I shamelessly stole this from Tim, but without the Parthenon. The training philosophy had really Civil Air Patrol not doing a whole bunch. Before 1955, the chaplain or 1995, chaplain service had only chaplains. The chief of chaplain was an Air Force assignment. Values for living was done by reservists. We showed up to do character development, but even as a unit commander, I didn't see my chaplain as a chaplain all that often. Of course, when I was unit commander, my chaplain was my home pastor, but that's another story. He was also an Air Force reservist, and when I was at National Staff College, he was at Basic Chaplain School at Maxwell, and it galled him that he had to salute me every time he saw me down there at Maxwell. But we were kind of, had our hands held. After about 1995 through about 2005, we started to become more active. Moral leadership officers came in because we couldn't recruit enough chaplains. From 1950 on, we've had the goal of 1 chaplain per unit minimum. We've never made that goal. The chief, the chief was Air Force until 2002, a director then for a couple of years, and then finally the CAP started to have the chief of chaplains actually doing the work of that job. We had a chief of chaplains that worked very closely with the Air Force side, but the Air Force was still directing. And if I remember correctly, the last Air Force chaplain was Colonel Ken Colton. I am very willing to be corrected on that one. We look at this because we're seeing that our autonomy is getting more so. 2005 to a couple of years ago, we became the Chaplain Corps, expanded the staff with the latest 265-1. And I don't remember the year that MLO became CDI, changed the application, and the focus was still strictly on teaching. There were several chiefs of chaplains who said the only unit that could accept a CDI was a cadet unit or a composite unit, and all they could do was teach character development. That, ladies and gentlemen, has changed. The chaplain staff duties are more codified in 80-1. CDI becomes a chaplain support specialist, and you're going to see the CDI, or the CSS, is a complete and utter functioning member of the Chaplain Corps team, everywhere from a flight, which we've got like 3 of them in Iowa, up to the national level. Yes, the focus is still on education, but also support. And the name had to reflect that it's more than instruction. Therefore, we need to revise the chaplain and CSS training materials. We're emphasizing the chaplain support team concept. We're streamlining the publication. And then this also brings in the values for living, which I misspelled, and the senior member character development. So our jobs as Chaplain Corps have become more intense and really more closely integrated with Civil Air Patrol. There was a conversation I had with a gentleman recently who said that when he was active duty, he never saw a chaplain. And we are looking at Civil Air Patrol. Our chaplains are present everywhere and doing a whole bunch. As Chaplain Poland mentioned, having so many instructors in education and training being chaplains and CDIs is to our benefit, not only because we bring a unique value to education and training, but people need to see that we care and that we're more than just the God Squad. Chaplain support teams started with emergency services. Marcus Taylor. Brilliant concept to say the CDI has to be involved. And having gone through the CAP support training, I did it 2 years running at NCR Chaplain Corps Staff College to get my certification. Excellent, excellent program and valuable mindset. The chaplain support specialist in character development or in emergency services is an integral part of the team. And their job of CSS is to provide ministry resources and support for chaplains so that chaplains can do chaplain things. We like that so much that we brought the idea and the name into the regulation for day-to-day operations. The chaplain deals with the full Chaplain Corps program, and the CSS deals with all but providing religious rites and sacraments as a CAP member. Now we have ordained clergy who are not chaplains and who are CSS, and as a civilian, they can provide a CAP service, but we can't do it under the auspices of CAP. One of the differences between our chaplain support team concept in normal operations is we have no set ratio of chaplain to chaplain support specialist. We are not a one-to-one team like the Air Force Religious Support Team. And in some respects, the CSS has more autonomy and different duties than the NCO of a religious support team. All right, so far, let's break for about a minute. And are there any specific questions about what we've looked at so far? And we'll do it from the chat. So I'll give about 30 seconds for somebody to start typing. If a person who never saw a chaplain on his active duty time, he may have been USAF in the 80s when the CHC was chapel-based and not deck-plate ministers. Absolutely.
Jeff, while they're typing, let me help you with some of the questions that you had asked. Chaplain Colton was the last active duty person to sit in that seat, but after he was off the scene, National hired Chaplain Bob Hicks, who was reservist, Air Force Reserve chaplain, and he became the paid person at National to follow up. And then after he was gone, I believe it was Chaplain Jay Hughes who became one of the first, if not the first, CAP chaplain to sit in the seat. But prior to that, we were all still called Chief of Chaplains, but you are absolutely correct. The Air Force side of the house did all of the work assigned to National Headquarters as part of the directorate, which now the chief does all of that as well. So hope that gives a little bit more insight to what you had asked.
Thank you, sir. And this is why, especially under Jay Hughes and Chaplain Satgast, and now under Chaplain Murdoch, we have expanded the national staff because it is just too much work for one person. End of story. Yeah, I look at the job and it's amazing. Well, let us continue outbound. Training governance. The Deputy Chief of Chaplain Corps is the chair of the Department of Chaplain Corps Studies in Voluntary University. This happened earlier in the week that we signed on our professional development, education, and training for Chaplain Corps as a branch and department of the Voluntary University. I'm not positive what this looks like yet, but it's going to open up so many doors for so many people, not only in Civil Air Patrol, for as Colonel A said to us earlier, she wants to be able to offer our courses to other organizations. So this is a huge, huge development, and Chaplain Corps is the first group to sign in like this. I'm very, very excited. The Deputy for Personnel, HCP, is in charge of the chaplain training and education materials and overview to make sure it gets done. And then the National Chaplain Support Specialist, and that office symbol there of HCS is unofficial. It has not yet been approved. It's in the new regulation because of conversations I've had with people trying to complete Chaplain Minor's letter and graduation requirement. And a specific shout out to Shirley Rodriguez for asking about that office symbol and giving suggestions on how we could use it. So thank you again, Shirley. I'll stop picking on you again. So that's our governance. The annual Region Chaplain Corps Conference. We are changing the Chaplain Corps Region Staff College. One, it is not really a college under the university per se. We are a department. Two, by using the term conference, you know those two conferences you need for level 3? Now this counts. It's an official conference. Again, this happened within the last week. We are looking at the probability of preliminary assignments. We want to align with the volunteer university modules. Some of what is taught on our face-to-face conference will be aligned with the modules. We're going to certainly teach specific Chaplain Corps materials, but I'm hoping, and this is me as an educator talking, that our materials specific to Chaplain Corps can be put into the Chaplain Corps library and also part of Volunteer University for other people to tap into. Noted that it counts as level 3, and we're not going to have a specific number of academic hours. We need ministry of presence, and we need to be present with each other. Now, I have not attended the record number of Chaplain Corps Region staff colleges. I've only got like 25, 27 of them, something like that. So I'm in the middle of the pack. You've got people like Chaplain Makita and Chaplain Hatcast and Murdoch and Hughes, who as chiefs attended all these schools, and you know, they've attended 40 to 50 of them. And it's always good because it's the camaraderie that happens even more so than the academics. There is a question asked me privately, and if you're going to ask a question in chat, make it public, please. How is the governance outline covered going to affect how we're functioning in chess? It won't. This is the academic side. Chess is operational. So those are the goals of the annual Region Chaplain Corps Conference. For the most part, in the first draft of the ARC, we were looking for a good acronym here. In the first draft of the ARC chapter in 40-80, and not much has changed really. One of the things I realized tonight, and I need to make a note of, is if you cannot attend an ARC, we need to come up with a way to equivalent that so we don't keep you from your various level trainings. So I need to note that, stand by one. So that's something that the education team needs to speak of at National. Okay, let's see, continuing on button. So let's go into the book itself, the 40-80. The 2019 Rocky Mountain Region Staff College was tasked with coming up with an outline for our new training capabilities. This was something that Chaplain Hatcast asked me to do. We tackled the staff college as problem-based learning, which was fascinating. We did have a number of good people working on this. Chaplain Dave Knight, who is my replacement at Rocky Mountain Region. The newly announced CDI of the Year was in charge of the CDI CSS portion of it, and we worked hard. It was great. All of the specialty track materials That would be pamphlets 221, A, B, and C, plus 225 are one pamphlet. It is called the Chaplain Corps Handbook and Specialty Track Guide, and I took that pretty much from cadet programs. Their new pamphlet for handbook and specialty track is a very, very good job, and I plagiarized that idea. So it's a resource and it is a text. Specialty tracks in general provide opportunities for service, training, activities, and knowledge. And we've changed some of this even since I presented at Mid-Atlantic. And if you saw my presentation at Mid-Atlantic, this is an entirely different presentation. So let's take a look at what we require. Service. Now this is not time and grade. This is time in your specialty track level. Across Civil Air Patrol, you have 6 months as a technician, 12 as senior, 18th as master. We're going to just go with the CAP standard on that. As Colonel A spoke with me after the Mid-Atlantic Chaplain Corps Region Staff College, as we're doing more to bring our stuff into line with Volunteer University, she mentioned that the 6 months gives a chance to acclimate, network. It's not just how many things have you done, but in some respects you need to get involved with people and do the networking, get your face known, ministry of presence, and in some respects it's knowing where the bodies are buried and learning who knows where the bodies are buried. Bad way of putting it, but in fact, I would not be in the position I'm at today if it was not face-to-face stuff 5 years ago at the North Central Region Staff College, or the last couple of years with the Rocky Mountain Region Staff College, and the national convention or conferences and the region conferences, etc. So that's the service. Training. You'll notice that in many respects, we've got a the chaplain support specialists and chaplain are doing a lot the same. We probably need to put GES in technician rating for TLC. TLC basic for both for the technician rating. Chaplains need to take the facilitator course. It is required to be appointed for a CSS, so we didn't need to put that in. Senior level, become a mission chaplain. The last I looked, and it was like 3 days ago, we only have 85 mission chaplains nationwide. We are in a bad place there. We need mission chaplains. The training that Marcus Taylor, Linda Pugsley, and that crowd have done for chess is phenomenal, and the fact it's now online makes it much, 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 much more accessible. And for that purpose, our chaplains and CSSs need to become rated. Notice on the CSS side, you either become rated as an emergency services chaplain support specialist or get a tech rating in cadet programs and then attend one of the ARC sessions. And then master, complete the ARCCC, and we don't know what that looks like yet. It may just be a one and done. That's really what we're hoping for. And complete CISM or QPR or some sort of external training in suicide prevention, counseling, etc. This slide is a lot smaller than what the book is, and I had didn't want to have formatting issues on this puppy. So there's a lot more than just CISM. CISM itself, by the way, is a trademark, and I should have put that on there, and I apologize. Activities. Technician rating. Chaplains present 2 character sessions, prepare all CAP cars, Form 34s, and update your continuity. For the technician rating for CSS, it's 4 character sessions and prepare all of your Form 34s. If you're not up to speed on your Form 34, you're not getting your next level of from technician to senior, etc. It's that important. That 4 character development sessions, my long-suffering spouse unit, who's a master rated CDI and level 4 in professional development as a captain, which I'm very proud of her, would present 4 to 6 sessions per month at 4 to 6 different units. We were constantly going somewhere because in the Western Denver area, we just ran out of CDIs. So you could do that in a month. For your senior rating, promotional activity for a chaplain, present a unit plan, attend a 20+ hour cadet activity as a chaplain. That would be like half of the encampment, what have you. Yes, Chaplain Corps heading on LMS does have facilitator course because it's under Chaplain Corps. Just notice that, Dave. Develop a chaplain library of CAP cards. That 20-hour cadet activity, I'm thinking the way we want to track that is if you're doing several weekend activities with cadets that are like 8 hours and you do 3 of them, that ought to count. We haven't figured out exactly how to make that work yet, but we don't want to hold you back just by saying it has to be an overnight activity. On the CSS side, it's presenting CD sessions, and you've got some either ors, the 6-month plan for character development, propose a budget, brief the unit on Chaplain Corps, or nominate a Chaplain Corps member for an award. And then another, provide non-clergy support for religious service, or chaplain support team support, or teach at 2 other units, or help plan a non-Chaplain Corps activity which we ensure the Chaplain Corps gets involved with. For example, a wing conference, make sure we have a worship service in there. We want our CSSs to instruct in TLC Basic, which I do not think TLC falls under, TLC will not fall under Volunteer University. And again, your CAP cars. Master rating, plan a wing or region training. Remember, every 2 years, you need 4 hours of wing level training. Be part of the planning team for Region Staff College ARCCC. Write a newsletter article for the transmitter or your local region newsletter or your wing newsletter or your unit newsletter. Just get your stuff out there. Be a chaplain for a region or national activity other than the region conference. So actually what this says, if you're doing 2012, for example, I was up at the first Model Airplane Radio Control National Cadet Special Activity, Chaplain for National Activity. 2013, I did the worship service for National Conference, National Activity. There's any number of ways you can get that credit. And in fact, provide worship for CAP activity can certainly fold into the previous line. Now notice on the support specialist, you're still presenting character development. You're mentoring a CSS through technician, CAP cars. Critique the Chaplain Corps webpage and submit that critique to me as the chief geek or whoever replaces me. Newsletter articles. And then two of the following, you can see those. And do one of the following: serve on a wing or region task force or present a session at ARCC. And then knowledge base, this is the fun part. You can see that our training for knowledge for both the chaplains and CSS differ only at the master level, in that the chaplains have 2 more chapters in the book than what a CSS has. These tests will be online, like the 221 A, B, and C are online right now. And I will, at this point, open it up to questions. Let me bring in Moodle, see if anybody's done anything in there. And
Sir, I have a couple of questions already pulled up in Moodle if you're ready for them.
oh, are you covering Moodle for me? You are an absolute party animal. Chaplain or Captain Parsons, you are absolutely marvelous. Thank you.
All right, our first question, they've been a CDI since 2013 and have taught tons of classes and in their squadron and as a guest speaker at other squadrons. After tonight, they'll have 2 chaplain region staff colleges, but they didn't get their tech rating as a CDI until 2019, so they can't get to the senior rating until 2020. Is there a way to get a master rating without the additional time requirement?
Anything can be waived. And what you would do is ask, I would run a waiver request for time in position up through your wing, region, chaplains, and over to Chaplain Murdoch. You know, we don't want to just willy-nilly do it at the low end. And he is the one who ultimately is the one to grant waivers for things like time and grade. But keep your chain of command in the loop as to what's happening there.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir. The next question is, are we still going to receive continuing education credits once the name is changed from college to conference?
I hope so. For Rocky Mountain, for the first 2 years of that school, we negotiated with a college, well, Colorado Mountain College, to grant CEU. And there's also CEU through Air University. We're going to have to negotiate with those providers to show what we're doing and that this is a continuing ed, even if we take the name college out of it.
Perfect. We do have a question about having someone look at the chaplain's record to see what they need to advance in their levels. That would be the professional development officer, sir?
Theoretically, it is. Professional development officers are afraid of chaplains. I have very, very, very few people in the professional development area who are comfortable with our specialty track. That is why I became a professional development officer and have obtained the master rating in professional development, which also shoehorned me in as PD for Iowa Wing, which is kind of fun. I would suggest if your local professional development officer is afraid of your specialty track, walk them through what they're doing, educate them, and consider becoming a PDO yourself, or an ETO, which I really like that acronym for us, European Theater of Operations. Worst case, I don't have complete access to your training records, but if you need help in determining what is appropriate, I am willing to help you. jwilliams@hc.cap.gov. And by the way, this question of chaplain professional development is why the chief of personnel has become the go-to person for chaplain corps development, professional development, education, training. And I'm hoping to see that flow down in an official way to region. It would be nice if either the chaplain at region or CSS at region was dual rated and was assigned as an assistant PDO so they can help with chaplain specific stuff. So great question. Next one. Oh, and I did see flowing through, CAP CARS stands for Civil Air Patrol Chaplain Corps Activity Reporting System. And in my last region newsletter for whatever region I was in, Rocky Mountain, I had a logo of a little car that I pulled off the internet that I used for that. Let's see if I can bring that up.
While you do that, we have a question about where do you find study material listed for the tests?
Okay, that will be pamphlet 40-80, and that's going to be in the revision process starting the day after Chaplain Murdoch gives Paul Gloyd 80-1. So, you know, there's a lot of revision that I need to do with that anyway. Yeah, okay.
Perfect. And the other persons here, we do have several questions for Zoom if you want to Zoom through those.
Okay, if you've got them, make it so.
Sure. Will this training count for the conference requirements, or because it's so new, has that not been put into the system yet?
This is not a conference. This is a college.
Oh, I got it.
Matter of fact, Colonel A was the one who said to me, rename it as a conference. It's going to help people. And that, by the way, is what I'm calling officially the CAP car. Just thought I'd let you know that.
I love it. When will the new CAP Pamphlet 40-80 take effect?
Well, we have to get it written. We have to get it debugged. We have to get it revised. We have to make sure that it is ready to go after all said and done. My goal as the primary editor of it is to see it go into effect by 1 January. but a lot of what is required is out of my hands, but it is a much easier process than a regulation. It is also called 40-80, again at the request of Paul Gloyd, because it's professional development, education, training, and falls under that area, which also fits nicely with the Department of Chaplain Corps Studies.
Perfect. One of the other questions that we had was about the requirement to write and present the unit plan. What does that entail? And perhaps more generally, how do we locate the requirements for each of those steps in more detail?
Work with your unit commander.
Perfect.
And I'm showing 2.5 minutes, so I really need to cut this off and turn this over to Chaplain Minor so we can leave on time, and I apologize for cutting it off. I will answer
No problem.
the question soon.